I've been curious, and I've asked the other coaches too. Working inside and working outside is two different things. How difficult has it been because of the weather, where you've had to do a lot of your work indoors, even though you've been out here in some cold weather?
It's pretty difficult, especially for the disc kids. They pretty much work on feet, and they throw cones, which not their favorite thing to do. But so as soon as it was in the higher 30s, we came out. If it wasn't, snowing or anything like that, we brought them out. Just because a lot of times you'll have meets where you're gonna have, not the greatest weather, and you still have to throw.
Yeah.
So it's best for them to be able to practice in it, and then a lot of times they'll perform better in it.
All right, from the discus standpoint, talk about the footwork and what it takes to make sure that you get a good throw form-wise.
Well, a lot of times we start with power pop, which is just your basic stance, and then driving through, depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed, it's going to depend on your drive. And then with disc for the spin, we'll take them to half spin, which is where you set up halfway and go through the movement. And then you'll go to a south, which is you're just taking your step to the center and setting yourself up for the half and then going all the way through. And then you'll have your full spin where you set up in the very back and then go all the way through.
Okay.
The biggest thing for them is driving through.
Right.
So.
From a youth standpoint, and I mean that from just understanding what it takes to be a good discus thrower, is it pretty difficult to teach that if they haven't been exposed to it before?
It is, and a lot of times you'll come in and, like last year was my first year, and we had to break a lot of bad habits. So it's the first thing. It is difficult, especially if you're not necessarily the most coordinated.
Right.
It's a lot of learning, and we always say it's a junior, senior sport, and a lot of that we say is because we work on your feet from the time you're a freshman until you're a senior, and by the time you get to your senior year, a lot of times it's perfected.
Right.
So it takes time, and it takes a lot of practice. It's not just something you can jump into and be perfect at.
Sure.
Lots of practice.
What do you like about your squad right now? What is it that, are they deep? Do you like it from the standpoint they're throwing well right now? What might it be?
I just love these kids in general. They're all really good kids. They come and work really hard and are driven to better themselves, to PR every meet. And not only that, but they compete with each other, which is awesome. So they push each other to be better. And so we just have a really good group of kids, honestly.
Want to drop a couple of names? Again, you're going to be competing tomorrow at home, which is finally nice that you're going to be at home.
Yeah.
Who will we watch?
You will watch Scott Schaefer, who's our senior, and then we have Ryan Yates, who has shown huge improvement this year, which is awesome. And then we'll have Colton Davis on disc as well, who's coming out as a freshman, throwing about 110, 115. So that's really good. So hopefully for the next 3 more years, we'll see a lot of growth in him as well.
Sure. How about the girls' side?
You'll see, we have a lot of girls that are kind of grouped in the same area this year. You'll see Jonna Murphy and Aubrey Coyle. And then you've got, let's see here, Kristen Richards and Ilea Leonard. And I think all of our girls will throw tomorrow for disc.
Good.
But we've got about 3 or 4 that are in the same area, 70s, close to the 80s.
Okay.
So,
So now, the other coaches always like to ask, you have a certain area that you say to yourself, okay, we're at this point in the season, we ought to be throwing here. And that way, when we get to sectional time, I kind of know what we have to do. Do you gauge that throughout the year?
Yeah, a lot of times we'll go to a meet and I'll gauge it based on what others are throwing. Throws are down this year as far as competition. So my thoughts for sectionals is if we can get into the hundreds, they're going to be golden. What we've seen this year for some of the highest throws is 110 or so for girls.
Okay.
For guys, probably what I would be happy with would be 130s, 140s, just because I have kids with that potential.
Sure.
And that would probably get them out of sectionals.
So have you, in the competition you've seen this year, because you've been up against some pretty good teams this year, how have you guys stacked up so far?
Pretty good. A lot of our kids who are throwing disc, especially girls, are sophomores.
Okay.
So for them to be throwing in the 70s, I'm really happy with, because we can continue to build on it, and by the time they get to become a senior, they're going to be doing really well in competition.
Sure.
So I'm really happy with where they're at. My guys as well. I mean, they have gone into a meet and performed, and so my hope is that I can have, my two guys that throw at sectionals that they'll make it out. They have every bit of potential to do that. So
tomorrow, what do you expect? Good competition, I would imagine, from Muncie, being the consolidation and everything.
Yeah, when we went to Marion, they have two really good male throwers for disc. Okay. So well, they'll throw well. I know they will.
Yeah.
They have good footwork, so it'll be good competition, and hopefully it'll drive my kids to better themselves as well. So.
And good to be at home too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Finally.